Welcome back to Deck Architect, the show where I take user-submitted decks and try my best to engineer them for greatness. I am Hardleg Joe, if you didn't know, and today we're looking at Kazooie 1's Evil Hero deck, which I'll admit right off the bat, I am not an expert on heroes. I have not played heroes very often. I played a little bit of Evil Hero, I've played a little thing here and there, but I do not know all the ins and outs of this deck. However, just looking at it, you can already tell that there's like some general problems with it, right? There's a lot of 2-of cards. There's a 45 card deck, a 14 card extra deck. This deck has a lot of problems with ratios, and as such it has a lot of problems with consistency. I can tell this without even knowing the archetype super well. So I thought I'd bring this on the show, not as a way to show you how to build the best hero deck, but as an example to show how we can talk about ratios. There's a common piece of advice for new Yu-Gi-Oh players, which is, if a card's worth playing, it's worth playing at 3. Now, as you get better at deck building, as you learn more nuance, you will find that eventually there are times that you want to play cards at 1, even when they're not limited, and there are some rare occasions when you want to play cards at 2. Same thing with deck size. Most of the time, you want a 40 card deck, the smallest you can do. Because the smaller the pile you have to pull from, the higher the likelihood that you'll pull one of your 3-ofs. Yu-Gi-Oh! Engineering is all about increasing probability. What you draw off the top of your deck is luck-based, but you can make luck in your favor by having a small pool to pull from and making sure that that pool is filled with all the best cards in the highest copies. Now, there are times that you do want to go above 40 cards. You'll often see pro players who will go 41 or 42. But again, that's something that you learn about as you go on. For most people, you want to stick as close to 40 as possible. And this, I can tell, has at least 5 extra cards that could be cut out. And obviously it needs another card in the extra deck. I think that's kind of common sense. So we're going to go through this, we're going to analyze kind of what they have, and we're going to figure out if perhaps we can improve this even without knowing a ton about heroes. Now, in order to do that, to make things a little bit easier to see, we're going to schmoove on over to Yu-Gi-Oh! Omega, which has a much nicer, cleaner look than Master Duel, I feel like. So just for starters, what we're going to do is we're going to remove all the tech cards. A tech card, if you don't know, is pretty much anything that's not key to your success. In this case, you're playing an evil hero deck, a hero deck, so we're just going to remove everything that doesn't specifically have to do with heroes. This includes the Maxi, this includes the Forbidden Droplet, Lightning Storm, and what we're left is the core of your deck, which is already down to 37. Now, a lot of things that some people are tempted to do is to just focus on the core. And obviously you do want a good core, but especially in Master Duel, if you want to be competitive, and this patron does want to be competitive, they talked about being stuck in Diamond 5 and wanting to go higher, you really need to try to fit in those key tech cards that everyone is running. In this case, we have what we would call the Master Duel tax, which is 3 Max C, because if you can resolve Max C, you win the game like 90% of the time. 3 Ash Blossom, because again, if you can resolve Max C, you can win the game. Ash Blossom stops Max C. What also stops Max C is Called By, which is at 2. Called by the Grave not only stops Max C, but if you activate Maxi and they Ash Blossom, you can Called By their Ash. So it's all about this mini game where you win by resolving Maxi, and you want to put that in. If possible, you probably also want to put in, what's that other card? I can never remember. The one of Crossout. So this is what we would call the Master Duel tax. 3 of this, 3 of this, and 3 of this. These 9 cards, pretty much if you want to make a competitive deck in Master Duel, you're always starting with these 9 cards. And thus, if you want to make a good deck, what you're aiming for is not a 40 card deck, but a 31 card deck. We need to narrow this down by 7 cards so that we can fit in this package of incredible staples. Now, they might want to play Nibiru as well. This is often like a going second deck, so you probably want to put that in too. These other ones, I'm less sure of, but we'll see what we do once we get to the end of this. Okay, so in order to do this, we're gonna try to prioritize the things we want. The patron said that they wanted this to be an evil hero deck, but they also wanted to be able to do other hero stuff. But since the focus is on evil heroes first and foremost, let's start with that engine. It's also very simple. We've got 3 Adusted Gold. And I know enough about this, you can discard this card, add Dark Fusion or one card that mentions it from your deck to your hand. So we want Adusted Gold, and we want the Dark Fusion. In this case, what you really want is Dark Calling. Both of these are used to fusion summon evil heroes. This can use materials from the graveyard. This one, I believe, just uses monsters from your hand or field. Your opponent can't target it with effects this turn, but that's not super useful in most situations. We're not in a meta where there's a whole lot of targeted effects that are really going to ruin your day. Mainly what you're going to be running into that's removal right now is Mirror Jade, which is a non-targeting banish, in which case this doesn't do anything to help your plays. So I'm actually going to say, go ahead and remove this. I don't think you should play this at all, because it's just clearly worse than Dark Calling. Now, Dark Calling is a good example of a card you could just play at 1, because you search it with a Dusted Gold, you're playing a Dusted Gold at 3, and then you just use this to make your 1 Malicious Bane. This is probably the boss monster of the archetype, boss monster of the deck. If you're unfamiliar with it, must be special summoned with Dark Fusion, which Dark Calling counts as. Can't be destroyed. During your main phase, destroy all monsters with attack less than or equal to this card. So 3,000 or less, you're just destroying everything. Also, this card gains 200 for every card destroyed this way. You cannot declare an attack except with hero monsters. So this is a nice going second. You're just going to clear the board, attack for a whole lot of damage. If you can get this on board with something else, you're golden. So you can play 1 Dark Calling. Maybe we'll want to bump it up for 2. Maybe you want to go for the grind game. I don't know how good this deck is at surviving through a grind game. I feel like you kind of just want to OTK, in which case you're only going to ever resolve 1. So we've got this, we've got Dark Calling, and now this is a Fiend type, so we can't actually search this with Reinforcements of the Army. We can, I believe, search this with Stratos. This is add 1 hero. Doesn't have to be a specific, so evil hero. And because we're just discarding this, that means that elemental hero Stratos at 3. Basically, any card that starts your plays is a 3 of. Any card that you can search off of it is something you want to consider playing at 1, maybe 2. The point of playing something at 2 usually is if you're going to activate another one during that duel. The other option, you might want to play this at 3 if you want to ensure that you see it in your opening hand, but you really don't want to see this unless you've got evil heroes to fusion with. So it's kind of better to play it at 1, make sure you don't draw it, unless you've got gold so that you can discard and get it there. Now, in addition to Stratos, another big part of your search engine is Vision Hero Vion. When this is normal or special summoned, you can send 1 hero from your deck to your graveyard. This is really important because you can send Shadow Mist. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 hero from your deck to your hand. So basically, this or this is going to get you Adusted Gold. You normal summon that, you send Shadow Mist, you get gold, you go into Dark Calling. And really, when it comes to most modern decks, 6 normal summons is about where you want to match it out, total. You really don't want multiple normal summons in a deck because they compete with each other. If you open with Stratos and Vion, you have to choose which one to use, and you're really only going to be able to use 1, unless you get some other effect that allows you to special summon. So in this case, you kind of want to stick with this, and anything else in here that would be a normal summon you want to take out. Fortunately, it looks like they've already got that kind of covered. There's nothing else I'm seeing here that really is a normal summon card. Now, you do have Reinforcements of the Army. This seems like an auto-include because it searches both of these, and these search that. But considering that you already have 6, I'm not sure if you necessarily want to play that. We'll put that as a maybe down here with the other Dark Calling. Alright, so going down the list, probably the next thing here, the next package that's worth playing is Vision Hero Ferris. If you're unfamiliar with this, you can discard one other hero monster, special summon this from your hand, and if it's summoned, you can place a Vision Hero from your deck in your spell trap zone. That's kind of the Vision Heroes thing, is they become continuous traps. And the one you're going to get from the deck is Vision Hero Increase. Because if this is treated as a continuous trap, you contribute one hero, special summon this card. If this is special summoned, special summon a level 4 or lower Vision Hero monster from your deck, which is Vion. And again, remember, if Vion is normal or special summoned, you can send one hero, so that gets you a search while having this on the field. Basically, if you open with Ferris and any other hero, you discard it, you get Increase tributes the Ferris, summons out Vion, and then you have 2 monsters for Link, plus this will send the Shadow Mist to search something. And I didn't mention it before, but Vion has a second effect. You can banish a hero from your graveyard, add 1 polymerization from your deck to your hand. So while we're adding these like little one-of packages, let's go ahead and put one-of polymerization. Again, maybe you want 2, maybe you want to activate more throughout the duel. We don't know that yet, but you probably don't need to play 2, because 90% of the time you're going to find access to Vion, either by normal summoning it, or by going through Ferris into Increase. Again, though, with Increase, this is another example of why do you play 2. Especially in this case, I can see why you might want to play Dark Calling it 2, because this is like, if you top deck it and you have evil heroes in the graveyard, you're just getting a free summon. It's a great top deck late game. This is not. This is not something you ever want to normal summon. It's not something you'll see in multiples, and you probably aren't going to be able to activate multiple Ferrises during a duel. You're basically going to resolve one, and then at that point you're probably going to empty your entire hand. You won't get 2 cards to do this, because this requires a hero in your hand. So we're just going to go ahead, bump out the Increase, and put that to 1. We're slowly working things down. Okay, so one thing I want to bring up that they've talked a little bit about in chat, where they're asking why I'm putting Rhoda as like a maybe. Because it seems on paper really good. It searches your Stratos, it searches your Vion, and both of those are like your starter cards. Why wouldn't you want something that searches it? And really, it's not that this is a bad card, it's just that it's bad in comparison to a lot of our other starters, right? Because the thing is, if you do the Ferris combo and then you use Increase to try to search something, not only do you get it on the field, but even if they ash the search, you've still summoned Increase. You still have a body on the field. If you normal summon Stratos and they ash it, you've still got a Stratos on the field. So that if you could do the Ferris combo, that's 2 cards that get you into a Link, maybe a Verte or something. I don't know if any of these locks you. But the point is you have a lot of searches that are already monsters on the field. So opening with a search where if you activate it and it gets ashed, you're just out a card, where you have nothing on the field and nothing in the hand, it just kind of feels bad in comparison to this, where you have so many other searches. It's kind of a filler card. If we were at a point where we needed extra cards, if we were at like 37 and we're like, yeah, we could put another, then you put in the Rhoda. But for the time being, I don't think it's particularly good. Okay, so from here, almost everything else is like a 1-of or a 2-of. So I think we need to start going down our packages and kind of figuring out what we want to do. Now, they wanted to have a lot of variety. They wanted to play other stuff, and they are playing Verte. So I think it makes sense to play the Fusion Destiny. The Fusion Destiny, you need targets, at least 2 Destiny heroes in your deck. It looks like they're going for Denier and Malicious. These 2 are a nice combo. They can get you a lot of cards on the field in order to make your Link summons, your Cross Crusader, Decimator, and those are both good at helping you OTK. Alright, so after looking over the rest of these 1-ofs, I think I know what the rest of them are and what they're used for. Liquid Soldier, it's a 1-of, and it's basically mostly important because it's a water monster. It's what allows you to go into Absolute Zero, which when it leaves the field, destroys all monsters. And you can make it leave the field with something like Mast Change that turns it into acid. This blows up all spell traps. A nice combo to basically just wipe your opponent's entire board. Kind of cheeky, I'm not sure if it goes off very often, but it could definitely work, especially since we have so many ways to get Vion without even using our normal summon. That means we can normal summon this, bring back the Shadow Mist, and when this is special summoned, you get the mask change. So I think including one of these and including one mask change is fine. I don't think you want to include more than one mask change. There is a lot of temptation to go into Dark Law. It's probably the best go first play you can do, but you're probably not doing Dark Law and this line in the same game. You just don't have the resources to like summon this back twice, and if you're hoping to top deck it, that's not really worth it. So I'm going to say take out the one mask change. And in fact, while we're here, let's just take out the one Dark Calling and the one Polymerization. What they seem to be more interested in is going for a lot of these different one-off plays, these different combos, and you're just not going to be able to resolve multiples of them in a single duel. A hero lives. People have pointed this out to me. A hero lives, pay half your life points, summon a level 4 or lower elemental hero from your deck. In the TCG, I believe this is limited to 1, which is why I didn't think anything of it being here at 1. But in Master Duel, it is not. I've got the Master Duel ban list up here. You can play this at 3, and I think you absolutely should play this at 3, because it represents another way to search that doesn't use up your normal summon. Basically, as it stands, you're going to, like, activate a hero lives, activate Ferris, normal summon one of these two. You're going to have 3 different ways to start your plays. If you could do all 3, then you're definitely going to OTK. If you can't, or most likely what's going to happen is one of these is going to get ashed. One of these is going to be stopped in some way, or negated, especially if you're playing a Go Second deck. So you just want as many ways to resolve them as possible. As someone is pointing out, it's also not once per turn. It's kind of effectively once per turn, because you have to control no monsters. But if you summon a monster and you try to activate its effect, and maybe they like gamma you, or they negate and destroy, and you happen to have another one, you could just slam down another one and do it again. And both of these get their effects when they're special summoned. So we're going to keep those in. Now there's also a really cool combo with Plasma. Destiny Hero Plasma can be searched using Cross Crusader, and it's not too difficult if you can get Denier or Malicious in the graveyard to get the 3 material to put this on. This is just skill drain. I'm kind of uncertain about this. It feels really high rolly. If it were me personally, I don't think I would put this in here, but just to make their deck a little bit more fun, let's put that in there. Same thing with this Malicious Edge. I don't think Malicious Edge is necessarily worth playing, but they want to play evil heroes, they want a chance to get into it, so we might as well put the one of Malicious Hero in there. And then there's Sinister Necrom. This is an interesting thing. It's a high-level monster, so you can't normal summon it. You can banish this from the graveyard, special summon a hero from your hand or deck, except for itself. So this basically, you know, if you use it as fusion material, if you discard it off of Ferris, it's just getting you a Malicious Edge or an Adjusted Gold from deck. Not only is this material on the field, but then you're going to be able to use it once it hits the graveyard with your Dark Calling. So I'm kind of tempted to maybe play this at 3, because it's an evil hero deck, or play it at none. That's really the thing about this. I don't think this is a card that you can play at 1, because you're never really going to be in a position where you're going to search this because it's so specific. And it's not a target for a hero lives. It does make Dark Calling more life because you could do it. You could play like Foolish Burial. Foolish Burial does get your Malicious and your Denier in the graveyard too, and Shadow Mist. Actually, yeah, let's Foolish Burial, because it searches you so much stuff, let's just go ahead and add that one Foolish Burial in there. Thanks, whoever suggested that. I could look up your name in the chat. Zach the Boss Streamer, thank you. Because they want it to be an evil hero deck, let's stick with 3 of these. Let's do the Necrom, try that. And just keep in mind, if the deck isn't performing the way you want it to, then get rid of all 3 of these, because they are by no means necessary. You already have a whole lot of engines, and I'm uncertain if this will help. From there, we've got the 1 Miracle Fusion. This is searchable with Elemental Hero Sunrise. And that's probably one of the easiest 2 hero monsters with different attributes. You've got a lot of different hero monsters. It's pretty easy to make that, and that's what gets you into Absolute Zero and such. And Honesty Neos, tempting to get rid of, but you probably need this as a tool in your toolbox to be able to get over certain monsters. Everything else in here, I'm just gonna say to cut. Supreme King's Castle is just awful. It just lets you make evil heroes by using other forms of polymerization, and you have so many ways to get to your evil hero stuff, I don't think you need this. Super Poly could be potentially good. You do have this, which is an elemental hero and a dark monster. Branded is mostly dark. This is one of those things where if you're gonna play it at 2. Play max copies of it. But with everything else you have here, I don't think this is worth playing another engine just to have this. I would say, you know, if you choose between the Necrons or the polymerization, and I would just cut this out unless you have enough for another one. Alright, and from here, I think we finally got it narrowed down. 33 cards, which means if we add in our must-play, the Master Duel tax, we should have just around 42 cards. 42 cards is at least doable, at least partially. Of course, you're missing out on Nibiru. You're missing out on Forbidden Droplet. You're missing out on Lightning Storm. Again, I would say, if you're gonna play something, especially something like this, like a tech card, play it at 3. You're not doing yourself any favors by making sure that once every 12 duels you open with Lightning Storm. If you're gonna revolve your deck around Lightning Storm, I would play it at 3. But, considering that a lot of your cards already have destroy effects, I don't think you need more destruction. What you need is probably a 3rd Forbidden Droplet, and in fact, let's just put another Forbidden Droplet in here, in the side deck, and maybe a 3rd Nibiru. And this is, again, and in fact, let's go ahead and put Super Poly in here as well. Basically, what I would suggest to Kazooie as they're playing this, try it out like this. If you find that Necrom is bricking in your hand, if you find that you're bricking on Plasma, that you can't do that combo ever, if you find that you're never using Mask Change when you want it, that you can't get into it, take those out, replace it with the Nibiru, replace it with Forbidden Droplet, replace it with Super Poly. These are all great examples of going second tools that are going to interact with your opponent's deck in a different way than the rest of your deck does. That's kind of an important thing to recognize as far as diversity in cards. Most of the time you're going to be summoning Malicious Bane, and Malicious Bane destroys every card on the field. Most of the time you might have Sunrise, which destroys a card on the field. Absolute Zero destroys cards on the field. So what happens if they have something that can't be destroyed, or something that you don't want to be destroyed? What are you going to do? That's why you need stuff like Nibiru, like Droplet, like Super Polymerization, stuff that can get rid of it in a way that your deck doesn't. The only reason we're not playing this is because you don't have the room. And you don't have the room because you're playing a bunch of different engines to go into a bunch of different elemental hero monsters. If you want to remove some of these, then you can put in more of these. It's the trade-off that you pay. If you want to do something more original, something that has more options, more choices, more toolboxes, then you're going to have to cut out those staples. Put in the staples, take out the toolbox, and you'll get a deck that's a lot more boring, a lot more simple to use, but one that is going to do the thing you want it to do consistently every single duel. Alright, so as a final note, we did need to adjust the extra deck a little bit. People pointed out Dark Gaia is a fiend and a rock monster. This is something you can make if you're playing Nibiru, but since we've taken the Nibiru out, we had to take this out. Escurado is something we could still play, but there are better options. Something that chat has suggested to fill the extra deck, Wonder Driver. This is very good for not only getting you fusions or your quick changes, it's just another hero link in general so you can get cards into the graveyard if you need them. Going second, Trinity is any 3 hero monsters, and it's just like a 5,000 attack that can attack 3 times, but not directly. In certain conditions, this can just OTK on its own. And finally, Mast Hero Blast. This is a nice thing if you happen to get your mask change and you normal summon Stratos and like they impermit or something, you can mask change into Blast and Stratos won't be on the field anymore. Just a nice little something to consider. Probably not going to happen often, but there's not a whole lot of must-play cards. Other suggestions people had was a second Dark Law, a second Anki. I'm not sure about that since we only have the one mask change. Cross Crusader, they say, comes up sometimes in 2, so maybe 2 of those. Maybe another fusion target for your Destiny heroes. And Great Tornado, which is a decent going second since it halves the attack of all monsters your opponent controls. If you could work your way into, like, Great Tornado followed by Trinity, that's pretty much like an OTK on itself, assuming they have 3 monsters and you've outed all their interaction. But yeah, I think this is definitely not the best hero deck. Again, not an expert on heroes, but I think it's definitely better than it used to be. We're a lot more consistent, we've removed a lot of the chaff, we've added in more of the hand traps that are needed to help slow things down, and everything we have here has a very defined purpose. We're not going to have this problem of like getting half of our engine and half of another engine. And even if this doesn't end up working, we know what our next route is, right? Remove some of these, remove some engines, add in more of this stuff. I would do some test hands, but I don't know how to play heroes, so I can't. It's really hard to tell with the consistency here, but I think it should be good. Hopefully Kazooie likes it, and I don't have an outro for this. I hope you liked it. If you did, I guess like it. That's what the like button is for. Comment down below if you've got your own suggestions. Join the Patreon if you want to help support the channel. And until next time, good luck and have fun.